Okay, this is a bit of very random filming. I thought I had abandoned the idea of filming tonight. It is 5:05 on Saturday, the day of the deadline for the So Yellow for Endo. What I have is, the bare bones of a blouse. That's the back, that's the front. Larger ruffle that goes on the bottom. A smaller ruffle that is attached to the top of that ruffle but hangs down as like a tier, and two straps that tie at the back part way down that V that you've just seen. I apologise for the quality of this, but I want to just crack on. I thought I'd bring you along with me. So I will switch off the video. I will set up my sewing machine for getting ready to sew everything, tidy up the background and make it a bit clearer where you're watching me. It really doesn't matter if you see it all or you don't see it all, but I just wanted I wanted to capture moments of me making this just because I'm doing it. Okay, good evening to you. I am now trying to see if I will meet the deadline. If I'm very far away from it in a couple of hours, I shall just leave everything as it is, and that's fine. I was well prepared to do this challenge, the So Yellow for Endo. However, we found that we had to say goodbye to our beautiful but rather elderly pussycat, Suki, that has been with us for 13 years and was already believed to have been about 6 when she kind of came on the doorstep and would not go away. And although we resisted and were determined not to feed her because she looked quite well fed and not bedraggled or neglected, but she was persistent, and so we did advertise her in the local Lost and Found Pets website, organisation, charity, and put notices in the newsagents near to us, and no one claimed her, and so she stayed with us. She wasn't locked up. She could go out any time. She could have found her way back if that had been a possibility. No one claimed her, and she hadn't been chipped, so we couldn't trace her owners. And we had been determined we were not having any more pets, having lost one about 13-15 years prior to that. Our Katie, who had lived for 17 years, was a little older than our son when she passed away. So we decided today wasn't a good day really for just hanging about here. We decided we would look up an old friend and just have a ride out, and we did have a really lovely scenic route over the top of Lancashire from the Fylde coast over to North Manchester, I think it's still called, but it's Bury. I call it Bury. Some people call it Bury. Nobody ever calls it Bury. They live in Bury because it's got a U. People seem to think they have to go Bury, so it's just Bury, really. Hey up, are you from Bury, lass? Yes. Now then, I'm moving my needle across here to as near to the end edge as possible, and I'm just going to stitch down this now. I think 3 would be fine. I'm just videoing it. I can pull bits out of it when I do a reveal video, if I do one. That's too near the edge, so we will go back and put that back on 4.5. This is instead of making a tube and turning it through. For what I'm doing, it's not really worth having to make a tube. So the pattern number is New Look. It says it's easy, N6732. And it's just this little frilly blouse. I'm not bothering with sleeves. Fabric I've got is, I picked it up as just a little remnant that someone had already cut something out of. It was in a charity shop, and I think I paid about £1.50 for it. There was only just about 1.25 metres. It's not very wide, but there were pieces cut out of it along the way. I don't know how they'd folded it to cut the pieces out, but it wasn't along the selvage or any kind of understandable way of doubling it over and cutting some pieces out of it. So it may have looked like it was 1.5 metres on one half, but they didn't fold it over. I'm not making any sense, so forget about it. So I think we just wanted to do something a bit more comforting. Took her on Thursday, and it was the right time, it was the right thing, it was the right vet, it was everything, and she no longer has to go there again. She no longer needs to be troubled by anything, and we just have to get used to her not being here, and it's going to take a bit of time, isn't it? And it was just nice to do something like familiar and comforting When I say familiar, we've not been over to Bury for about 18 months, I don't think. But we know the place, we know all around it, we know where we're going, we know if there's a diversion, we know which route we're going. I'm just flicking this on the floor. I do have a caddy to catch any threads. I never throw threads away. There they are. That's just since Christmas. And my little threads out of the way. And start again. So I have turned this under on the inside. I've turned it under and I have pressed it, and I've just turning it back through and then joining it up. I've just done the usual thing where it's a 2-inch piece. You iron half of that, you iron it in half, you iron half of that half into there, and you iron half of that half into there. You join those two halves of halves together, and you have got a strip. Have the foot on that has the guide so that it can't go any further away. I may have to try and bring you closer in the edit. This is where using this foot is a little bit difficult. Okay, so we have one of the ties. Is that? No, so that one. Well, that's fine. The other end of the other one was a, what's that thing? Selvage. I didn't do that one. I need to sit on my chair up. So I've got the 1/4-inch foot on that's got the edge, so it's the 1/4-inch edge foot. Oh, I know why I didn't have to do both ends now, because it's caught in the seam. And we're off again. So I may have made it too unnecessarily thick. Okay. No, that's not been overlocked. So just need to overlock those two little pieces. So when we came in, this room was freezing. So I put the little heater on, and I've got this ring light at the side of me. And now I feel like I'm going to pass out with heat stroke. So I've turned the heater off. So all I'm doing, I've got this facing that goes on. It's strange because we usually do the V at the front, and this has got a V back. So just doing the neck facing, and I'm just matching up with the armhole, the shoulder seam, and the shoulder seam of the facing, which has had interfacing applied to it as well. And just let's see how that goes. It's quite stiff cotton, so I've no idea how this will work. And the things that I've just cut, I need to thread in here and catch them in. So rather than get all tangled up in them, I'm just doing from above that space, above where that notch is, where I fit it in, hoping that I will remember when I get around the other side. And just sewing this in so far. Right, now I don't need this on. I need to swap feet. 5/8. There we are, there we are. Now I have to put mine, oh that's alright, it's on 4. Normally the default is 3.5 on mine, but my needle is just slightly to that side when it's on default, and it's not in the centre, so it knocks my 5/8 off, or whatever my measurement is. So there is my 5/8. I won't be anything like as fast as I was, but I may be fast. I may speed it up. Oops, I've gone a bit wavy. That's it. Trying to turn it before I got to it. I'm not a fan of going over pins. I never used to bother, but I had one incident where the needle broke. It went all in different directions, but also the timing went on out on the machine for quite a while after that. Well, a few minutes anyway each time I tried it, so I don't want a big bill for getting my timing right. So I prefer to measure the seam allowance down from the edge along the V, straight along, and then from the same side, from the other side, and then you'll get a cross point, and that is the point that you need to sew to. Let me do that. Okay, so that might seem quite extreme, but believe me, it's not. Or don't believe me, it doesn't matter. But, oh, Made to Sew, I think she's called, oh, what's her name? Annika? Maybe Annika. She does quite formal tutorials on YouTube and has been doing them for, I don't know, over 10 years or whatever. She's quite formidable voice, tone of voice, as she's giving you instructions, and will betide you if you don't do it right. That's how you feel anyway. She's obviously an actual avid seamstress and knows what she's talking about. So I'm quite happy to follow her. And it's been successful so far, so. Now, there is some received wisdom that you don't just go down and turn it at the V, but you make a stitch across. Well, at the moment I've overshot, so I'm going to work out what to do about that in a minute. But let me get the rest of this fabric. And yes, what I've done is, as predictive, I've gone over this notch. Never mind. Let's just do this bit first. This is a difficult, because my needle is now not in the middle, but would be not in the middle, but that way. It's not that simple just to follow where your foot is showing you to go. So I'm just going as far as this line. I've just used a normal pencil. For purposes of illustration and just 'cause. That's fine. Right. Come off again. Come off. The thing is, you can't tell now. Until you actually cut into that, you don't know what you've got. So I'm not bothering about that just now. I need to unpick those the stitches that overshot. Where is my unpicker? They overshot. But I backstitched. I removed that, backstitched, and created a different end. So they shouldn't unravel anything if I take them out. That's it. Just got to find out which one of those is that. The pulled on edge. Not that one. That one. I've got my edge there that I want. That's it. Okay, so this is just about stay stitching. The shoulder seams are quite wide because you gather them together between those two notches. So that's that, and then there is a yoke piece that you join to those gathered in pieces, and that straightens that out. That becomes your shoulder seam, and I'm not expecting you to understand all this. I'm just doing a quick overview. And then that's what I've just, the stay stitching was there just within the seam allowance, and then it was creating the tubes for the ties, attaching the ties, which I didn't do before I put the thing on, which appeared to be in a similar angle to the shoulder seams. So I've done that, and then I've added this facing, more or less. I've not turned it under, but never mind. And that's the bit I'm doing now. So if you see there, that's that point that appears to go much further than it needs to, but that's where it needs to go. So my next bit is just to sew that on. Now the strap should hold in, because this is going to be turned in a minute and overstitched, I think. I'll just need to read the pattern. So just tidy all my ends, and then I shall do some trimming and come back to you. Cut down to there, trimmed each side, and I'm just putting these. Now I am going to just turn that over, just over once on the machine, and then I'm going to go and press all this and see if it lies well. Very strange, haphazard way of doing this under pressure. Just going snippety snip. Just give it a turn over. I could overlock it and then fold it in, but it's going to make it bulky if I add in layers of stuff to it. I should just run a row of stitches round it and then fold it on that edge. Let's see. We shall put that on 2.5. My favourite foot for understitching is this one. Not because I need the seam guide, but because, sorry, I've only run downstairs, ironed, run back up, and I'm out of puff. I like this edge just to be on the other edge. I will show you once I get it on. 1.5. Just going to do a time check. It's 6:30. We are understitching. I'm going to go slower. Just so that I can just pull that apart, but make sure that it's tucked underneath. Actually, I don't want it tucked under. I want it tucked out. Oh, what am I doing? See, what is it? More haste, less speed. So I'm going to have to go da 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 da. I don't think I'll get done for copyright. I don't think it's recognisable as anything proper. We just try again now. Try again. If at first you don't succeed, just try again. So what I want, I thought it wasn't down a dip. I like this corner of this foot to be down the dip, down there. And this, oops, pile of gubbins here. To all be up at this end, and that's what I'm pulling through, and I'm keeping that at that side. So off we go again. back stitch. Don't start fiddling about now. Don't be brave and nick off a stitch, because it's the stitch that's holding it all together. Okay. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to get it on the thing, but I will finish it, but maybe not tonight. I'm happy that I've picked it back up, so that's good. And I can just put a donation on the Just Giving page, that's fine. Okay, so this is what I've got, relatively okay. This will now be pressed on the inside. This will become, turn it round. It's a bit like finishing off the sagebrush top, but with a V-neck back instead of those edge-to-edge kind of doorway things. Sort all my threads out. But what it needs now are 2 layers of gather to the bottom. That's no great issue, is it? Sewing up the sides and then adding a frill all round it, and then gathering this shorter piece, attaching it to this longer piece so that that is then one. I've had to put a piece in because I was a bit short of fabric, and the other one you have a longer bit at the front, a wider bit at the front than the back, probably because of the bust size. I sized down quite a lot because it was very oversized, and I think really I'm making it for my niece, so my great niece. So what you get is, I've done it with the purple one is the right way up, the green cone is the wrong way up, and so I've got, that would be the frill on the top, all gathered up onto the frill at the bottom. These would be hemmed. They would be on the bottom edge of the skirt, of the blouse. Where is the blouse? Which I don't have enough in the pink, and I'm going to do in a pink spot. So it's just that shoulder ruffle for there. Now I had been going to be fancy and do the shoulder ruffle in the pink that goes with the pink. I have some lilac spot, and I was going to do the bottom ruffle was going to be lilac spot. Oh no, the other way up. The small ruffle would have been, so the lower one would have been yellow to match this. The lower one would have been there. Then on top of that there would have been a lilac one, which then picks out the lilac, and there would have been the pink spot on the shoulders, and that I thought would be quite pretty for my niece. But I've decided I've done enough for now, and I see the possibility of a finish, but not to put on the challenge, so that's fine. I will perhaps video the rest of it being put together tomorrow. Okay, so I don't want to frighten you by being so close to the camera. I don't know if it will get me now at all. I'm just videoing the chaos. This is Susan Seaside Stitches sewing room, and I'm going to show you that afterwards. This is about don't walk in a tip, but if that's what you've got, make the best of it. So I'm just going to take you along with me again. Last night I tried to finish the yellow, so yellow for Endo. Okay, so the lighting isn't ideal and the proximity isn't ideal, but I'm going to swing you around so that you can see the sewing machine. It's not a sew along, it's just a being with me as I sew this. I'd like to finish it, although it won't go in the challenge. It's too late for the challenge deadline. I'd like to finish it and I'd like to move on to what else I've got ready to sew. Don't want to keep leaving whips everywhere. So this kind of straddles nicely into what I'll be doing next month as a kind of refresher. This is the pattern I chose for myself, just to make something for myself. It had nothing to do with this challenge, but then I realised that I could possibly use the ice cream cone fabric that I'd got from a charity shop, which is what I've done. But when I looked at the garment measurements, the finished measurements, they were massive, whatever I chose, for the size 6, 12, 14, 16. So I've ended up cutting it as a 12. Now it's going to be tight, and I don't think it will be for me in the end. So it's likely to be just for my great niece. She's only about 12, and she would be fine with it. I think if it fits her for her holidays, just over the top of a swimsuit or something on the beach, maybe. So I'm kind of prettying it up a bit more, into it being a bit more girly, more than I would have it. So I'm going to finish it and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I won't talk you through every little bit, but what I'm hoping to do now is just turn this over, taking the tension out of it. There's a bit of tension on it. So I'm just going to turn this over twice now and pin it and then sew it. So the Sunday glasses, or whatever it is, the holder for the cornet, the blue stick is is the right way up. I just have to make sure I've got that the way up, because the green ones are the other way up. So I can check, because the blouse is on the wall, so I know what it is. Where are my pins? Over there. Oh, you've seen pins being put in a garment. You don't need to watch that. So I'll turn you off again for now. I didn't start to turn it over. I went and pressed it. So I pressed it over and then I've pressed it as I've come to turn the second row. Now what I'm going to do is put my... It's not massively essential, but I will just check it with my seam gauge. Okay, so this is another good reason I love using this foot. It just gives me a bit of precision in a lot of ways, because you can slide the fabric. You can decide where your hem is and then use that foot on the inside of it, and then move my needle to wherever I want it. Just ignore that bit, that bit's not being used at the moment. So I just like my seam gauge to check where I am. There is 5/8 allowed for this hem, but it's not that critical, as I say. It's just a top frill over the top of a lower frill, and it's going to be gathered, so it's not, that's better, about 3/8. So if I measure where I'm up to, I'm not right on this chair. This is what I got made as a toile now, really. It's a really lovely pattern. Now, obviously, that's quite a silky, kind of like a viscosy, kind of very drapey thing. But I didn't have any of that in yellow. So this fabric I got from a charity shop. It's quite a thickish cotton, obviously not that drapey, and it's just got little ice cream sundaes on it. It was some fabric that someone had started to make something of, and they'd cut out a piece of it. I don't know if they'd folded it in a funny way, because there was a piece at one end and a piece at the other the other end. I'm completely nuts today, but never mind. And you kind of think you're making it back to front, but the back's got a V and a little thingy, and it's quite nice. And I sized it down. I didn't think it would be for me anyway, but I sized it down to a kind of proper 12. And I can actually get it on, but it's not really my kind of thing, is it? But I do have a lovely niece. Because I had no more of it, just a tiny bit, I did trial a few things. So there's that I could have done a frill with on the armholes, and I had some lilac, and I had some lilac spotted, and I had lilac blue, and it all became, well, I'll take the little thing off and put the pink round there, anyway, it didn't get done. So it's serving as a toile now, just in case I get around to doing the one with the sleeves. I really kind of think it would be quite nice. It wouldn't be all sticky outy frilly, would it? With something a bit more fluid. Might even give it a go. Bye for now.